forward to seeing you back in Australia. It's I was trying to think, when was the last time you were down in our shores?
I think we came down there on the Dystopia tour, right? Did we go down there at some point?
I can't remember now. I'm not sure.
I know. I don't remember either. Last one. Oh yeah, we did, and here's when it was. I was there twice in a year. Ironically, I was there. I think it was either late 2014 or early 15. I think it might have been early 15. Right before I recorded Dystopia, I went down there and I did the spoken word tour.
Ah, that's right. Yes.
Right, I did that, and then later that year, after we'd recorded Dystopia, we started a world tour. I remember we started in China, then we came over. We did Loud Park in Japan, and then we went down to Australia. And we did the whole tour. That was with Chris Adler on drums. This was late 2015, before Dystopia came out. And then we went over to India. We went to Russia, and then we finished with a UK tour. That it was actually Megadeth, Lamb of God, Trivium, and maybe Hatebreed or something. So I remember, it was literally an around the world tour. It was very cool.
Yeah, I remember the spoken word tour. I caught you at the Perth show. I think we actually met because you were doing some kind of meet and greet thing afterwards as well. So that was very cool. A lot of fun stories. I mean, you obviously have a lot of stories from the road and things like that, so it's very good. You ever think about doing that again? Or?
I do. It's funny you say that because, a promoter hired me to come down there to do spoken word, right? And I'm, what the hell is this? Isn't this like what you do at coffee houses or something? Or, or you're Henry Rollins,
Yeah.
And they said it can be whatever you want. So I was like, well, look, my safety is bring a bass, and if nothing else, I'll kind of do a clinic, because I'd done a lot of those and I could tell stories around it. So, and that's, that's basically what it became. I then developed that into something called Bass Story. And I took that around the world. I did all of Europe, UK. I went to, I did the USA. I went to South America. I mean, I did a whole Bass Story world tour. And probably the only thing I changed is eventually I started having a backing band behind me to play some of the songs rather than playing along to a laptop, So it took it from a clinic to being more of an actual band performance. But then that led to the Ellefson band forming in late 2018 as we were doing some dates. And so that, I basically put a band together. So I'd have like my support band become my band. And so, look, that all started in Australia with that spoken word tour. So, I probably will. I mean, right now I'm in, sort of a different performance mode with, Dieth here in Europe, with Kings of Thrash, elsewhere. There's a time and a place for all of it. So I think, certainly at some point, to go back and, to kind of revisit that and then further develop it into something else. I started singing on that too, which it's funny, I'm singing with Dieth now, but I started singing on when I was in South America on the Bass Story tour. There was some tracks I'd written that's, had been recorded, but on the Sleeping Giants album, there's a song called If You Were God. There's a song I did with F5 called Feel Your Pain that I took the lead vocal on that one when I was on tour. So, it's fun for me to develop, the vocal side of it a bit more as well, because let's face it, whoever's singing, that's where everyone's paying attention to. So, it's good for me,
Yeah. Well, this time around, obviously, you're bringing the Kings of Thrash down to Australia. So I do have to ask, so where did this idea come from? Who sort of proposed the idea to kind of, tackle some of those really early sort of Megadeth stuff and bring it out on the road?
Well, it was my idea. And it started back in late 2021, right after I was out of Megadeth again. I did an autograph show in New Jersey, and Megadeth and Lamb of God had just gone through the area, and fans were coming to me very disappointed, obviously, that I wasn't in the group anymore, but also, airing their woes about the Megadeth set list. It's saying, hey, same songs. There's nothing adventurous here, you know. And as they're handing me "They're Killing Is My Business" record to sign, you know, it reminded me that we launched the band. Yeah, well, look, we started the "Killing Is My Business." Right? I'd say that we started that on the East Coast in the United States, right? And we worked our way across through the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit, all that, and down into Texas and over to the West Coast. And you know, it just hit me, you know, this record needs to be played again. And I could never, when I was in the band, you know, when we put out the Final Kill remaster, remix in 2018, I could just never get it to the stage. You know, I always thought we should have gone out just one night only, play it. You know, it only take about 35 minutes. It's not a very long album, you know. And I just think fans would have loved it. I think they would have really appreciated if we'd taken the time to do it, you know. And I don't think it would have been that much effort, quite honestly. At least I always stayed up on it, so I knew about it. So I knew how cool the songs were, and it's a different era, you know, of Megadeth. It's like when I go back and I hear the first Iron Maiden album, you know, you hear the early Judas Priest. It's kind of a different. They were different people. They were figuring their sound out. You know, it's and the fans love that stuff. You know, I mean, especially metalheads, man. We're a tribe of a different, you know, bird of a different feather, as they say. You know, and we love these deep dives. You know, so. For me, this is about doing this for the metal community. I think the fans want to hear these records. So Far So Good, So What also is a record that fell between the two big celebrated P-Cells and Rest in Peace. So it's an album that you know, saw us move up from the clubs. We did a big tour with Ronnie James Dio. We played Donington. We were up in the theaters. You know, we had Doro with Warlock out with us for a lot of that U.S. tour. So, you know, the band was moving up the ranks during that album. But it was before it really hit the big time, you know, in the 90s with MTV and, you know, the big stuff with Rest in Peace and Countdown and everything that followed. So, you know, to me, the 80s Megadeth is you know, that's a very coveted special time, you know, and you had to be there, you know, to kind of really know what it was. And that's why, you know, with me and Jeff Young connecting again, you know, Jeff, like a lot of members, once they leave Megadeth, they leave all of it behind. They never play the songs. They kind of forget how to play like that. They just sort of intentionally close the door, move on. I'm different because I helped start the band. You know, I'm a founding member. So for me, you know, that bass work and my writing collaborations, you know, that's really me. That's who I am. I'm still that guy today, the same as I was then, you know. So, you know, for me, you know, for better, for worse, right, wrong, or different, you know, my footprint and handprint is all over that till death do me part. No pun intended, you know. You know, so I think, you know, to go out, that's why it's respectful. It's not done out of any malice or one-upmanship or anything like that. It's just, you know, honestly, I see the fans. I think it's a fun thing for the fans. That's why we're playing these smaller places. We're not thinking we're bigger than we are. You know, these songs, especially Killing, they need to be played in small places. They sound better there, you know. It's one of the reasons over the years we stopped playing a lot of that stuff, because as the band got more popular and moved into the bigger venues, those songs, they didn't translate as well, you know, to the bigger rooms and the bigger venues, you know. So this is really a trip back down memory lane for those who were there before, a trip to a new memory for those that weren't there, you know, this time around. And of course, neither of these records got played in Australia because we were going to go there on the So Far So Good, So What tour, and we ended up canceling the tour, which, you know, caused some hardship with, you know, I know the promoter at the time was pretty disappointed, and, you know, but he eventually brought us back with Rest in Peace. So we all made good on it. It was fine. But yeah, these two records have never actually been played in Australia. So I think this is a chance to do something really fun and fresh and cool, as we take a look back, you know, back in time together.
Yeah, no, it's obviously it's a great idea to sort of go back and revisit these songs, and getting Jeff Young, you know, sort of reconnecting with him. Like, had you sort of kept your relationship over the years, or was sort of this is more of a recent thing? with him?
Honestly, I'm the guy who stayed in touch with everybody. Dave had to always do the firing or did the firing, and I'm the guy who always kind of kept the lifeline to these guys. To me, being in a band, it's I don't want to say it's family, because it is. It's brotherhood probably more than I would say family. And brothers fight, man. That's what we do. Sometimes we fight, we never talk to each other again. Sometimes we fight, eventually we hug and make up. But look, we're people, right? So there's always, when we harsh each other, it hurts both of us. So I think personally, it's always good to try to keep some lifeline and connection together. I think that's important. So I've always been, Dave even always called me the ambassador. I was always the guy who kind of stayed in touch with everybody and was always, I was the guy that could sort of have the diplomatic relationships with people, because it's hard being in bands. You're living together, you're playing music together, you got all these sort of very intimate qualities about the relationship, and lifestyle, and sometimes it's hard enough to make music together, then you got to actually go live together on the road for a year. So there's a lot of dynamics at play. But yeah, so for me and Jeff, look, me and Chris Poland had stayed together, had stayed friends over the years and seen each other quite a bit. In fact, he was a big inspiration for my sobriety, when in late 89 or in the 90, when I was, making that transition from the old life to a sober lifestyle. He was a year or two ahead of me, and that was a couple of years ahead of me. And that was nice, that he was, God, if I could see him get clean, I was like, holy cow, I think anybody can do it, so it was great that he had made that turn and was a good friend to me in that moment. And then, Jeff and I guess probably in the, the Megadeth Behind the Music special, I'd reached out to him to be part of that. And he was not so excited, his departure from the group was kind of bitter, and some harsh things were said about him in the press that, he was not very fond of coming back to, to being around it. And I just said, listen, look, that was then, this is now, it's a different day. Would love you to be part of it, because you're part of the story, you're part of the family tree. And he fortunately, weighed in on the interview, and it was nice. He was included in that, as was Chris Poland. So, I think those two guys, the guitar players have a pretty significant place in the Megadeth history because of their importance in the musical role. And what I found interesting with this is, Jeff was Chris's successor, yet they'd never met, and yet we did the tour together, and they're like good friends. They geek out over gear and guitars and music and stuff. They're real musician kind of guys. So it's great to see them be friends, and of course, there's no hardship over anything. It's and Chris has gone on to do great stuff, playing bass with the Circle Jerks after Megadeth, and Ohm and everything else. Of course, Nick Menza was, part of Ohm, even the night that he passed. So, in a weird way, I think all of us sort of post Megadeth have, we've done the right thing by each other. We've stayed in touch. We've not held any grudges or anything against each other. We've just, reconnected. And I think that's what's fun with Kings of Thrash is not only being reconnected, but going out and celebrating songs that we've played together.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you coming back. And I do have to ask you one more last question as well, because I've heard some rumors that you guys are working on some material for Kings of Thrash, like original material. Is there any sort of truth to that at all? Or?
There is. Well, it's funny. So after I do the autograph show, right, which sort of piqued my whole, kind of idea to start something like Kings of Thrash, right? Jeff and I reconnected again in January 2022 over the Nick Menza documentary. So he's part of that. And during that encounter, he and I started talking about these songs that we were working on together back in 1988. We were writing some new material that, you know, eventually became Rust in Peace, of course. And of course, Jeff's, you know, songs didn't get used on that, so he still had them. And so he started humming them to me. I'm like, oh my God, I totally remember that riff. Because there's this one sort of descending riff that was in 7, I think it's an odd time, like kind of a 7/8 kind of time signature, right? So so we got together in LA and spent a couple of afternoons writing some new material together. And so then it was a month after that that we played together at the Whiskey in Hollywood, and that actually began the downbeat and starting of Kings of Thrash. So you know, so yeah, so we actually got together in May out in Arizona, and worked again on the songs, because now we've done a couple of tours together. We wanted to revisit the new music, since that's ultimately what kind of brought me and Jeff back together, was some original material. So and Jeff's really been pushing it, which is good. You know, I think Jeff, you know, it makes me happy to give a platform to Jeff to be back, you know, in the presence of the hard rock metal community, back in front of the Megadeth fans. He was only there for, you know, a year and a half, you know, in 87, 88. So, but that time was significant. You know, we did a lot of big stuff. You know, the movie, the Metal Years, Decline of Western Civilization, you know, we did a lot of stuff that year. So for Jeff to be back, and I think for Jeff, you know, to write and sing a new song is where his heart is. You know, it's one thing to go back and play these, you know, past songs, because that's where the people know us from together. But, you know, to have a new song and a new story and something new to say moving forward is really important for him. So you know, I'm happy that we got both. You know, we got a little glance at the past and we got a little view of the future together. You know,
cool.
So I think it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, have fun on the tour. It's obviously only a few weeks away, and obviously it's great to have you back in Australia. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything with this new band and all your different projects you've been doing as well. It's been good to see you sort of been active again. So,
yeah, man. Thanks, Andrew.